Crusader Kings 3 is the best video game adaptation for that one TV show we will ever have. Which TV show, you might ask? You know, the one that started off as a once-in-a-generation quality series, had a stranglehold on popular culture for close to a decade, but it's such a disappointing final season that it's completely faded away from our collective memory. And even though a global lockdown has occurred, you haven't thought once about rewatching it? Yeah, that TV show. This is a game that has a lot to live up to. The previous Crusader Kings is widely considered to be one of the best in the grand strategy genre, but it's also going to be 9 years old this February. So when I heard they were making a sequel, I was excited, but worried. The last game Paradox released didn't turn out as well as I'd hoped, and while I don't think that they're struggling financially or anything, there's still a lot riding on this. If this game also didn't perform well, it might have looked like the beginning of the end for the golden age of Paradox games. But it finally released just last week, and I love it. It set out to dethrone my favorite game in the genre, and it fucking nailed it. But there's another thing it did for me too. It gave me a game I could suggest to my friends who don't normally play strategy games, and try to attract them to the genre. If you're new to these types of games, you might not know the difference between strategy games, grand strategy games, and 4X games. But to be honest, I don't know the difference either. What matters more is turn-based versus real-time strategy. CK3 is the latter. The game runs until you pause it or an important event pops up. Real-time games can be a bit tough to manage at times, especially if you're new. But being able to speed things up when there's no wars going on and your kingdom is thriving really helps with the pacing of this game. It allows you to jump past the moments you might find boring and focus on the stuff that entertains you. So what is this game all about anyway? Well, it's a historical strategy game set in the medieval era, with some RPG elements thrown in for good measure. But I like to think of it more as a medieval dating sim. When you first start, you're given a few options. The game has these suggested characters to choose from based on the time and region that you select, but if that's not enough for you, you can play as any kingdom shown on the map. Unlike some other Paradox games I've played in the past, this game actually has a pretty decent tutorial. So combine that with the overhauled user interface, and you basically have the most user-friendly Paradox game ever made. Even as someone who's played these types of games in the past, it's just nice to not have to sit down and watch a 10-part YouTube series just to figure out how to play.
Let's take a quick look at the two equations we saw earlier. This is the discipline of the attacking unit.
After you've chosen who you want to be, you might be surprised by the first hint this game gives you. There is no way to win in CK3, only different ways to enjoy the story that unfolds. So, what am I supposed to do? I understand that might seem weird at first, but the ability to go in any direction you want is what makes this game so fun. I'm playing as the King of Wessex in the south of what is soon to be England. I don't really know where to begin, so I'll just start with these notifications at the top. My first problem is I own too many holdings, and I need to create more vassals underneath me. It's smart to choose people who share similar traits as me, cause it'll give them a reason to like me more. I'll give up some of the less important land, just let me keep London. That should be fine. There's another glaring problem though. If I want to start a dynasty, I need to have some kids. Oh my god, she's horrendous looking. But I mean, hey, what did I expect? This woman wants to romance me, and I mean, what the heck? I'm king after all. I'll just have to be sure not to let it go too far. Guess I should work on conquering the rest of England in the meantime. Okay, we gave it another go, and this one turned out a lot better. Only problem is the current succession laws. The kingdom will be split between them after my death. I'll have to work to change those laws before I have too many more kids. Oh, shit. Oh, I'm having a mental breakdown. Yeah, can't imagine why. Thank God, my daughter has cancer. Turns out I'm not as good of a ruler as I thought I was, and a civil war's broken out. Even my best commanders joined the other side. So be it. I'll lead the troops myself. Death isn't game over, though. You continue to play as your heir. And because the game continues after each character dies, it ends up being less about what's best for my character, and more about what's best for our dynasty. Each character's traits will sway you in the direction of a certain playstyle. In one life, you might focus on conquest with a character who is high martial, but in the life of the next character who's more skilled in intrigue, you may increase your power by figuring out the dark secrets of others and blackmailing them to get them to do what you want them to do. This means you can experiment with multiple different playstyles in just one playthrough of the game. Suddenly, this game sounds less like a strategy game and more like an RPG, but it manages to be both without either of those things feeling half-baked. You need to choose a lifestyle for each character you play, and each lifestyle has a skill tree, which you level up as your character makes more decisions. It helps set a theme of what you're aiming to accomplish in that person's lifetime, and it's also a great way to mechanically represent your ruler getting more experienced over time. On top of that, you have traits which play a role in how you're able to interact with other characters. They can also influence the events you encounter, making what would normally be an easy decision for you a difficult dilemma for your ruler. It's a balancing act between what you want to do and what your character wants to do. When I found out that someone was embezzling funds from me, I had the choice of executing them to instill a bit more fear as a ruler, but that choice would have caused a great deal of stress for my character because I had the trait of just. This layer of the game does require a lot of strategy, but not in the way you would think a traditional strategy game would play. It's about character interaction as much as it is about painting the map your kingdom's color. And yeah, there's plenty of things in here you would expect a strategy game to have. Managing all the wars that you're involved in is as important as managing your dynasty. Importantly though, a lot of other Paradox games have vastly more complex combat systems than CK3. But besides those combat systems being more difficult for new players to learn, I've noticed the AI often doesn't know what to do either in some of those games. This game's combat system is a lot simpler, but in a way that still feels in-depth. I think it'll be a lot easier for both you and the AI to understand. Battles also feel a lot more high stakes. Knights are an important makeup of each army, and losing that first battle at the start of a war often left my best knights dead, so after 2 or 3 battles, it felt pretty clear who the winner was going to be. With combat being that unforgiving, it might be tempting to save right before an important battle, just in case things don't go as planned. Here's why you shouldn't do that. There's a setting in this game that you have the choice to turn on before you start each playthrough. It's called Iron Man mode, and it disables the ability to save at any given moment, only when you go to exit the game. Maybe for your first game you can leave this off, but I honestly believe that this is the only way you should play this game. Since there's no true way to win, it provides more obstacles and a greater chance to actually finish a playthrough. You might want to load that previous save after you've lost an extremely crucial battle, but the problem is you start to become an unbeatable killing machine. Getting unlucky and being repeatedly set back in a video game isn't fun. But in my experience, having the ability to undo those setbacks altogether is even less fun. It's a shit happens kind of game. A lot of events require decision making, and most of the time, those choices involve taking a risk. So the end result is outside of your control, but the decisions that you made leading up to that result were. If I can just hit undo and load up a previous save, I've completely taken the steam out of this core mechanic. Iron Man mode is also the only way to unlock achievements, so if you're into that sort of thing, you'll need to play on this anyway. And I know the idea that there's no definitive way to win might seem like a lackluster ending to you, but I promise, it'll never be as bad as the ending to its TV show counterpart.
Get it, guys? He named it A Song of Ice and Fire, just like the books. That's good writing if I've ever seen it.
One thing that's great about these games is they get even better over time, too. The DLC options for Paradox games are usually insane, but the positive thing about that is it means the devs will continue to improve this game in the future. Free updates come out alongside the DLC usually, so you might not even have to pay to enjoy improvements to this game. Speaking of which, Crusader Kings 2 and other strategy games like this have had some of the best mods I've ever seen in video games. They've already begun the development of a Game of Thrones mod, which on its own was enough to get me to buy CK2 back in the day. So if you're not ready to spend $50 on this game, CK2 is completely free on Steam and totally worth playing if this game at all interests you. And if you do end up enjoying these games, why not branch out to all the other great games in the genre? Want Crusader Kings but set in the Renaissance era? Try EU4. How about Crusader Kings but as an hour-by-hour simulation of the entirety of World War II? Hearts of Iron 4. What if I want Crusader Kings but worse? Imperator Rome. These are games that tend to only get love from a somewhat smaller audience in the huge industry that is gaming. But if you've never tried a strategy game before, you might be surprised at how great these games can be. And Crusader Kings 3 is the perfect place to start.